Okay, we're at the 2:04 mark. Let's get started. Thank you so much for those of you who are able to join us today and participate in this discussion. We're so excited. Obviously, we are super close to this election. It's a big election, not just for federal, but also for the state and local elections that are happening all across the country. So we wanted to do this webinar in particular to talk about the voter experience at the polls. This is going to be really important because a lot has changed since 2020. A lot has even changed since the midterms in 2022. So there's a lot of information that may be new to voters that they haven't experienced just yet. So you will hear from our esteemed guests today, some of our favorite partners in this work, who will tell you about vote early day opportunities and vote riders, which is they give information on voter ID and what you need to bring to the polls, which is really, really important. So let's get started without further ado. My name is Cheyenne. I'm the campaign director for National Voter Registration Day. We are going to talk about quite a few things in today's agenda, but first and foremost, housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with each and every one of you. So you will not miss a thing, but it will be recorded and shared. So we will talk today about NVRD 2024 and what we were able to accomplish. And then we'll get into this discussion around preparing voters for their experience at the polls. So again, we'll hear from vote riders and vote early day. We'll have an opportunity for some Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the discussion, please drop them into the Q&A box. If you look at your Zoom, there's a Q&A feature. It's like two message boxes right next to each other. Drop your questions there so that we can raise them when we get to the audience Q&A section. Okay, and once again, this presentation will be shared. The recording will be shared with you all. So here we go. So let's do a recap of National Voter Registration Day first and the official results. So many of you have probably already seen this in our e-blast, which our comms team, Travis and Jack, work hard on. So we are so excited to announce how well we did. But first, just a big thank you to the many generous sponsors that made this holiday possible. This is obviously a huge holiday because federal election seasons are always big for National Voter Registration Day. So we're super grateful to the sponsors who were able to support this year's program. And to our partner coalition, which includes many of you that are on this call right now. We had 152 premier partners, which are national organizations as well as corporations. And that is the most we've ever had in history. And we had 5,600 community partners, which are local organizations, sign on to run voter registration drives and to do voter registration in their communities. So we are so grateful that all of you were able to participate. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you so much. This congratulations belongs to you. And as a result of it, we were able to touch 2 million Americans who either registered, updated their registration, or checked their status as part of the holiday. So that represents 1 out of 120 eligible voters nationwide. That is huge. So this really shows the impact of this holiday and the need for it to continue as a reminder to Americans everywhere to either register to vote for the first time or to check their status and make sure it's accurate. 820,000 registered to vote as part of the 2 million number, and 310,000 of those were from youth voters. So the youth, we know, make up a huge demographic, and many of them have entered the rolls for the very first time, which means that there's an education opportunity since they'll be showing up at the polls maybe for the first time as adults if they've never voted with their parents. Over a quarter of the new and updated registrations were collected by you guys. So our community partners were the ones that really held it down with making sure that the voter registrations were collected and passed on to their county elections offices. So thank you. And now the holidays lifetime registration total is up to 6 million, which means that we are continuing to tick up the voter registration across the country every year and continuing to prove impact. So once again, Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so, so happy to have each and every one of you as partners. I do want to emphasize that federal elections are always big for National Voter Registration Day because there's a lot of attention, there's a lot of media, as we see. But what happens in the off election years, like next year, when we shift to local and state elections? So that's where we really need you guys to help us to make sure to continue to register voters and make sure your community members have the information that they need to register to vote. So next year, as we gear up again for National Voter Registration Day, which next year will be held on September 16th, we'll definitely be leaning into our local partners because you guys, as you've seen from the stats, are the ones that make sure the numbers come in. So thank you again. And again, if you have any questions, just drop them into the Q&A box in Zoom. So now we will get started with this discussion. So we are going to be talking about the 5 steps for preparing voters for their experience at the polls. Very recently, as of last week, we did a webinar that was run by Gwen from the nonprofit Vote Side, and she talked about the strategies for GOTV, especially some of the resources that are going to be the most pivotal for helping voters understand what information there is around candidates and their ballots. So I am going to recap that webinar in case you missed it, and we'll also get into what those 5 steps are for making sure that your community members are prepared. So first and foremost, why do we need to prep voters for what they should expect? It may seem kind of obvious and it may seem kind of redundant, but it's not. This year, we're seeing 34 U.S. Senate seats up for election, 435 House of Representative seats, state legislative races happening in 44 states, and 11 governor races. So one, beyond just who's running for president, we are voting for a lot of different positions that impact us in each and every one of our states. So the education piece is really important around that. Down ballot initiatives is really important to make sure voters know what they are walking into and what they can be prepared to see when they look at their ballot at the poll site. Millions of Americans face a brand new landscape of voting laws that passed in their states in the wake of the 2020 federal election. So as we know, there's sweeping changes that have happened across the country. And we also know that 1 in 4 Americans usually only vote every 4 years. So if you take that and you kind of put that in perspective, if the last time you voted was in 2020, there may be a lot of changes that have happened in your state around not only voter registration, but the voting experience. So it's really important that as you're talking to voters and doing GOTV strategy, that you make sure you're educating them about what to expect around this. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, 8 million youth have registered to reach voting age since the 2022 midterms. We saw a lot of them come into the voting rolls in the past 6 months, and there's a huge opportunity there for education. You will have to kind of talk very use very basic terminology when speaking to them to make sure that they grasp the concept of what the ballot is, what it may look like, and understanding what each of the seats represents. So beyond just the candidates, understand what it is that they're voting for. So here's the reasons why, but now we'll talk about like the steps for actually making sure that they are prepared for what they'll experience at the polls. So step 1 is make sure that they have their pre-election day education. So in last week's webinar, what Gwen covered was some of the resources from some of our partners on what's available. So Vote at Home, the National Vote at Home Institute, has a breakdown of how voting at home works in each state. So those are the policies on voting at home in general, returning forms, third-party rules, and then ballot curing, which means that if you need to change your ballot, how to do that. So that is a really awesome initiative and a great resource. Again, this presentation will be shared with you guys, so you'll have access to all of these links, but these are just a few of the resources that you can start to push out. If you have an e-blast or if you have an email that you can send out to folks, these are great resources to include include. Vote 411 from the League of Women Voters is a great resource for teaching voters where candidates are running for office in their community and where they stand on issues. So based on the address that you enter, the Vote 411 will generate a very tailored ballot to that voter. So it's a really great resource for helping voters to see what that ballot is going to look like, and they have no surprises when they walk into the booth on election day. And then last but not least, we have guides.vote, where you can read through nonpartisan voter guides that show where candidates stand. So very similar to 411, but it's produced by journalists and links to credible services. So they're very similar tools. I encourage you guys to push it out to as many folks as possible, just to give them an understanding of what that ballot would look like. What we hear from a lot of voters is that they're surprised by all of the candidates that are on the ballots or all of the positions. So as much information that they can have in advance so that they can research it and come prepared for who they are ready to vote for, the better. Again, if you have any questions, just drop them into the Q&A box and we'll get to them after the partner presentations. So for step 2, you want to confirm the details and review your ballot. So there are so many reasons, as we've already kind of touched on why you should check your ballot or check your voter registration and check your status before going. But some of those include just making sure that you're still on the rolls. As we know, many states have purged, not all states, but many states have done purges to voters, voter rolls for many reasons. But that is one of the key reasons to make sure that you are still actually registered to vote in that county or in your district. Also, you want to verify that your poll site hasn't changed. This has actually happened to me personally as a New Yorker. My poll site was at a school that was like a block away from me, and then the poll site changed. They sent out a mailing, but it did not come to me, so I had no idea that my poll site was no longer there. So that is a really good example of why you should just make sure in advance, because you don't want to show up at a poll site that maybe no longer exists or is closed or has changed for whatever reason. And then lastly, if you have changed your party affiliation or if you want to, you can make sure, as long as you're within the voter registration deadlines, you can make that update. So now that you've confirmed your status and you know that you're actually on the voter rolls and you know where your poll site is, great. Now you want to review the ballot positions and research the candidates. So here's the education piece that we really should emphasize this year with having such a huge election, especially down ballot. So step 3, let's make a plan. So you've confirmed your status in your poll site and your ballot information. Again, we have those great resources available to us so we can see a sample ballot based on your address. Research how you plan to vote. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, and we'll hear from our partners on this. But find out where you can either vote in person, find out what machines are being used, and what you need to bring with you on election day. Those are all great ways that you can help voters feel encouraged and confident as they walk into their poll site. If you give them a good understanding of, like, here's everything that you should expect. Here's how much time it usually takes, although if they go on election day, obviously the lines can be a little bit long, but that's a great way also to just manage their expectations. Bryce is here. He will talk to you about vote early day, and Lauren will tell you about what to bring on election day. So next we have pre-packing your materials and your documents to bring to the polls. Again, Lauren will talk more about this, but make sure that you have the appropriate documents with you before you go out to vote, because nothing is worse for voters, you know, who may already be like frustrated by the process or feel like, my vote doesn't count, it doesn't matter. But nothing is a bigger deterrent than when you get all the way to your poll site and you don't have your ID or you don't have the proper identification. So make sure that you just have it ready. And if it's helpful, you can also bring along a sample ballot from your state elections website if it's available, so that you can have a list of all the candidates that you're planning to vote for. And that will expedite the process for voters as they go into into the booths. And lastly, go vote and have your voice heard. So once you've confirmed your poll site and you've made a plan to vote, go out there and encourage voters to make sure that they are continuing to make their voice heard in the state and local elections, because it absolutely matters this year, but especially next year. And now for our special guests. So first we will hear from Lauren Kunis, who is the Executive Director of Vote Riders. She is very special to me because she has preceded me as the National Voter Registration Day Campaign Director. So Lauren, thank you so much for being here. You will tell us all about what we need to know about the voting experience in terms of what to bring, and then we'll hand it off to Bryce. So take it away, Lauren.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for the invitation. Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Kunis. As Cayenne noted, I am the Executive Director at Vote Riders. I've had the honor and privilege of serving in this role since 2021, but before that, had the just as great privilege of working with the National Voter Registration Day team in 2020. So these webinars bring back fond memories. Great to be back. And first and foremost, thanks to every single one of you for joining what I hear was the biggest National Voter Registration Day ever in history. But also thank you for keeping the momentum going straight on through Election Day. We've got less than 3 weeks to go. I'm excited to dive in a little bit on our bread and butter at Vote Riders, which is voter ID. At Vote Riders, we focus on the increasingly crucial issue of voter ID. We want to make sure that voters have a plan to vote that includes an accepted form of ID. Voter ID is a really key part of connecting the dots between voter registration, which we all know about, and then casting a ballot that counts and doing so with confidence. We want to make sure you not only cast a ballot successfully, but have a smooth experience at the polls. A question we answer a lot at Vote Riders is, isn't that the same thing as voter registration? And I am here to categorically say, no, not the same thing. It is yet another piece of the puzzle to navigate, especially for voters who live in one of the 38 states that you see on this map with a voter ID law in place for this November's election. So all of the states in purple are the 38 states with a voter ID law. So voter ID laws, just to back it up for a second, request or require that you show a specific form of ID when you cast a ballot. ID laws are different for voting in person versus by mail, and just like all things voting, there is no one size fits all answer. The ID you need or don't need to cast a ballot depends on where you live. We were talking earlier today about the change in voting laws across the board since 2020. Voter ID has found itself really front and center in, excuse me, in that tidal wave of change when it comes to voting laws across the United States. So 18 states have put in place new or even stricter voter ID laws since 2020. And these impact in-person and mail-in voting. Some states like North Carolina have a brand new voter ID law that didn't exist at all in 2020. Other states like Florida and Georgia and Texas and Ohio have made existing voter ID laws even stricter or added new requirements for voting by mail. So that was the doom and gloom portion. And if we move to the next slide, we can say that here at Vote Riders, we have your back. We want to make sure that every voter knows exactly what ID they need to bring to the polls or don't need to bring to the polls, how ID is part of your voting plan. So I wanted to walk you through a couple of very quick resources that we have at Vote Riders that are publicly available, completely free, and can help you and your communities navigate this complicated and costly and confusing web of voter ID laws that we are all up against in 2024. So in yellow is our main sort of resource for checking the voter ID laws in your state. It's voteriders.org/check. We have an interactive map there for all 50 states and DC that walks you through the ID you need to vote in person, the ID you might need to request an absentee ballot, to vote by mail, the ID you need to register. All things ID, you can find it there. It's available in English and Spanish. We also have some specialized resources that are community-specific landing pages for groups of voters that we know from our 12 plus years of experience are uniquely challenged by voter ID laws. One is ID requirements and ways to get ID for trans and non-binary voters who may have a name or gender presentation that doesn't align with their original voter registration. We have a landing page for student voters who often find themselves in this really complicated maze of, does my student ID work for voting in my state? We have a landing page for voters with disabilities who are uniquely challenged for lots of different reasons across the board when it comes to getting an accepted form of ID. We have 2 new landing pages that did not make it into my slide, but I wanted to call out. We have a new landing page for tribal IDs to help Indigenous voters decipher whether or not their tribal ID can be used at the polls in their state and where they live. And we also have a new landing page for new citizens. Naturalized citizens are among the most susceptible to misinformation in the current environment. So we want to make sure that people who are newly naturalized are thinking about updating their ID to reflect their new citizenship status and making sure that they are able to claim their citizenship-derived freedom to vote at the polls this November. If you go to the next slide, there's another great free resource that I want everyone to take 30 seconds in order literally right now, if you can. These are our voter ID information cards. These are, I wish I had one with me. I'm holding up the imaginary one though. These are wallet-sized cards that we have for all 50 states and DC in English and Spanish that list the accepted forms of voting in your state, share information about ways to vote if available in your state if you don't have the ID you need. These are great things to pack in your bag when you go to the polls, just as backup to make sure you have an extra layer of confidence and a reminder that you have an accepted form of ID. These cards also for folks who have questions or need free help getting ID, they have our helpline number on the back. So if you go to our website at voteriders.org/cards, any nonpartisan group, which I know all of you as NVRD partners are, can order unlimited quantities of these cards for free, again, in both English and Spanish. I really urge you to do it today to ensure they come with plenty of time ahead of Election Day. We are rushing all orders through the end of the day on Friday to make sure that these cards get out there to communities who are positioned to distribute them and make sure that their communities are armed with the information and IDs they need to cast a ballot. You can also, if you go to voteriders.org/cards, if you don't want to wait for these cards to arrive in the mail, you can also download the files for every state and DC in both languages and print them on your own so you can start distributing them as soon as this afternoon when you get off the webinar. If we can go to the next slide, final resources that I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of is our voter ID helpline. You can call or text our helpline at any point with questions about voter ID, as well as to start the process to get free ID to vote. So one of the really unique things we do at Vote Riders year-round is we provide completely free help to eligible voters to get the ID they need to cast a ballot. So this is everything from partnering with Lyft to offer free transportation to and from ID issuing offices like the DMV. We pay for copies of your birth certificate and other underlying vital documents you need to get an accepted form of ID for voting, such as a driver's license or state ID, and we also cover the cost of that. So anyone can call or text our helpline. It's a little teeny here, but I'm sure Travis will hook me up and drop it in the chat, but the number for our helpline is 866-ID number 2 vote, which is 866-432-8683. You can also interact with the chatbot on our website at voteriders.org. You can start the process to get free help online at voteriders.org/free help, or shoot us an email at helpline@voteriders.org. Lots of different ways to get in touch with our team of staff and trained volunteers with your ID questions, and also to work with us rapid fire to get the ID you need to vote. I'm all choked up with excitement thinking about the fact that we have a few short weeks ahead of Election Day. Lots of work to do until then, and we want to make sure that at VoteRiders, we are your partner in solving for any ID questions or issues that may arise. So thank you all for joining today. Thank you for all of the hard work you are doing out there to make sure the right information gets in front of the right voters at exactly the right time. And I will look forward to chatting with you in the Q&A.
Lauren, thank you so much. For all of the nonprofits who are on this call right now, please take advantage of those cards. Just as she said, do it by end of day, distribute them around your community. That is a really awesome resource to have, especially because you can just slot them into your wallet. And I think voters will really appreciate that. So make sure you take advantage of that. And again, this deck will be shared with you guys, so you'll have access to all of the links. Lauren, thank you so much. And we will hear now from Bryce Bennett, who is the Executive Director of Vote Early Day. Tell us all about Vote Early Day, Bryce.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to present. It's always great to share space with our fellow civic holiday, National Voter Registration Day. Big congratulations to you all for paving the way for an amazing civic season of amazing civic holidays coming together, and huge kudos to everybody on the call for the work that you all did to make sure that millions of people were registered to vote this year. It is such a big deal to make sure that people are registered to vote, and we're so glad to have the chance to chat with you now about doing that next step of actually getting people out to vote and to share their voice, and specifically to do that early, and we'll talk about why that's important. So if you can go to the next slide, we'll talk about some of the basics of voting early. So the big question to start off with is, what is early voting? I think this is a pretty straightforward question, but not everybody is aware of the fact that there are options to vote early in 97% of the locations across the country, or 97% of the populace has an opportunity to vote early. That's 47 states plus DC have an opportunity to cast their ballots ahead of Election Day, and they can do that either by mail, having that delivered to their house, or in person at an early vote location. And we really do encourage people to take advantage of those opportunities to cast their ballots ahead of Election Day, because there are challenges that people run into that we'll talk about on the next slide. So the question that we hear from a lot of our different partners is, why vote early? Because when a lot of people think about voting, they say, well, I'm going to vote on Election Day. That's the day that people vote. And at Vote Early Day, we're really trying to change the narrative around this idea that Election Day is the only day to vote, but it is in fact just the last day to vote. For the vast majority of people across the country, there are opportunities for you to vote early in person or by mail. And that's because when Americans wait until the last minutes to cast their ballots, they can often run into problems. Things like long lines at the polling location, last minute meetings or emergencies, problems that might arise. I think that each one of us can think about various different things that could pop up in our life that could be the cause of us not being able to spend that valuable time casting our ballots when they arise on Election Day. The other issues that we're running into is voter disinformation and issues around voter ID that you just heard Lauren talking about. This is something that over and over we've heard from people. They show up on Election Day to cast their ballot, and they find out that they don't have the proper ID that they need, or they go to a polling location that is no longer the right polling location for them. When that happens on Election Day, that could be the thing that stops you from having a chance to share your voice. But when you vote early, it's very easy to overcome those obstacles. And we like to tell people that when you vote early, there's nothing that can stop you from sharing your voice. We can talk a little bit about one of the tools that we offer at Vote Early Day when it comes to ways that you can share your voice and cast your ballots early. We invite people to check out voteearlyday.org/vote to find out where you can share your voice. On that tool, you can see by simply entering a a little bit of information about yourself. You can find out where you can vote early in person. So that's likely an early voting center, the county election office, whatever it is for your community, you'll be able to find that information. You'll also be able to find out how you can vote by mail if that's the way that you prefer to vote early. You can also find out where there's ballot drop boxes in your location. I know a lot of people, as opposed to going to the mailbox to drop off their mail ballot or the ballot they receive at a voting location, they want to go to a specific ballot drop box. And this tool can give you the information about where you can drop it off in those locations. And the most exciting part is that it gives you the opportunity to make a plan to do it. And you heard from Cheyenne early on about the value and the importance of making a plan to cast your ballot. And this is a tool that not only is going to give you the information, but it's going to walk you through the process of finding a day, a time, a location to make sure that your voice is heard this fall. We can talk a little bit about what to expect when you vote early. I think a number of people here have probably had the opportunity to cast their ballots early, but we wanted to highlight just a little bit of what that experience is going to look like for people when they take advantage of it. So when you vote early in person, you're going to roll into a location that probably looks a lot like the photo listed here. It's going to be very similar to those of you who've had a chance to vote on election day. You're going to roll in, you're going to show your ID if that's required by your state, and you're going to do it at a time that is convenient for you. And I think that's one of the fundamental things that we like to highlight at Vote Early Day is that this is going to be a chance for you to cast a ballot, not just at a time designated by the state or the nation, but at a time that is convenient for you and your schedule. And you're going to be the one who knows when you have that time versus anybody else. It's also generally going to be quicker than election day. While there may be lines, while there may be different things that you have to do to go through the process of casting your ballot, it is almost certainly going to be something that is quicker than what we've seen from people who wait until election to cast their ballot. And already across America, there's over 7 million people who've taken advantage of their opportunities to vote early. So there's a lot of people who are already engaging in these opportunities early on. By mail, the exciting thing is that your mail ballot will be mailed directly to your house, and you can take the time to learn about the candidates and the issues of your ballot, again, at a time and a place that's convenient for you. You can also share the experience with family and friends if you want. If this is something you want to do fully by yourself, you're very entitled to do that as well. But I know a lot of people take a lot of value in, sitting down with family and friends and talking to the issues, talking to the candidates, and having a chance to lean into these conversations. And you can mail it back or you can drop it off at a place that's convenient and easy for you. And the last thing I just wanted to highlight for folks, and I think that Lauren touched on this a lot, but what you bring when you vote early, firstly, the only thing if you're going to be voting by mail that you need to bring is your ballot. Make sure that it's signed, make sure that it's sealed, and your ballot is properly inside its secrecy envelope, but then you just have to drop it off at the ballot drop-off location or in the mail. I was just telling people about the exciting piece of early voting that is bringing a snack and water. So I'm glad that I got a chance to share that with folks. But just wanted to highlight that there are states out there where volunteers cannot share water or food with folks who might be standing in line. So if you anticipate that it might be a busy day of early voting, bring that with you so that you can stay in line and make sure that your voice is heard. And I will pass it back to Cheyenne at this point.
Awesome. Bryce, thank you so much. I wanted you to be on this webinar because Vote Early Day is very new to a lot of folks. It was new to me. I mean, obviously we work very close together as civic holidays, but I wanted to experience it for myself. And about a month ago, while I was food shopping, I saw a whole bunch of signs for Vote Early in my state. And I said, okay, I'm going to go give it a try. I fortunately live in a state that has very limited or low voter ID requirements. Thanks, Lauren. And I knew exactly what to walk in there with, and I was in and out within maybe 4 minutes. So that was such a cool experience, and I just wanted to make sure that we had you on here to also, kind of convey exactly what you just shared around what the experience is like with voting early. So Thank you so much for sharing those resources, both you and Lauren. We are going to get to the Q&A section in just a moment. So now is your time to drop some questions into the box. Now I see a bunch of questions coming in, so thank you guys. Use the Q&A feature for any questions while we talk through GOTV resources. So you received a few in the previous slide. Again, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you. But we have also, through Nonprofit Vote National Voter Registration Day, we have a whole bunch of resources that we've laid out for you to make it super easy, especially for nonprofits that are doing this work in their community. So you'll have access to all of these links. One of them that is really helpful for GOTV is an email script. If any of you are planning to send out emails to community members and just kind of reminding them about vote early day opportunities or what to expect when they get to the polls, what to bring, etc. That email script could be especially helpful for you, as well as like tips for supporting voting by mail and the voter engagement. So again, you want to make sure that you are staying nonpartisan. This is all about just making sure voters have access, but we've made sure that these resources are easily available so that you can have these types of conversations out in the field. So we have a couple more civic holidays left. I can't believe we're almost at the end of this year. So as Bryce mentioned, the official vote early day, I did see this question in the chat box. When is the official vote early day? And it is Tuesday, October 29th. So we are just days away. We already see many states celebrating different variations of vote early day. So Bryce, I know you are super excited to see that. But Tuesday, October 29th, there's still time to sign up to be a partner. So you can go to the Vote Early Day website or sign up through civicholidays.org. And then we have Election Hero Day, which is a celebration of poll workers, which will be held on Wednesday, November 4th. So there's still time to sign up, civicholidays.org. The Purple Tour. So you may have seen the promotions for this. They're happening all over the country. They are these really cool parties that are happening in the morning. And they're dance parties that happen at early voting sites across 15 states. They're creating like a festive moment where they celebrate voting and democracy with all sorts of like fun parties. And then a lot of the states are doing these buses that will transport you to your poll site or to a vote early day poll site, and it is so cool. So if you have a chance to check it out, the tickets are totally free, so you can find a Purple Tour stop near you. I've been to 2 and they're just a blast, so definitely check them out before they end, and you can see the full calendar on the website. Go to Party to the Polls through Daybreaker. And then lastly, one of our partners, Uber, has brought back Rise to the Polls. So this is a great opportunity for folks who are doing GOTV strategies. Please share this with your community members. You can get 50% off of your ride. No promo code needed. You just click the Go Vote icon on Election Day, and you can get discount off of your ride specifically to your poll site. If you are planning to watch the election night results and you're ordering in food, you can also get 25% off your order. So super excited that Uber is able to offer this, and we'll share this with you guys as well. So without further ado, I know you guys have questions. Please feel free to pick the brains of our experts. They want to hear from you. So let's look at a few questions. So we have the first one from Andrew. Andrew said, do you have any advice for college students who feel like their vote doesn't matter or feel a bit apathetic about the whole process? One or two pieces of helpful advice. One or two pieces of advice are helpful in our efforts on a college campus. So I'll actually throw that to both of you because I think that's a great question for both of you to answer. So Lauren, I'll throw it to you first.
Sure. Great question without an easy one-size-fits-all answer. I really like some of the messaging being put out there by our partners at State Voices this cycle. And they're running this whole campaign around vote for something. You don't have to vote for everything. You don't have to agree with every position that any candidate has. In fact, you probably never will. But think about what matters to you and to your family and your community, and pick an issue and vote for that. Vote about something. I also really like the messaging that our partners and mutual partners of all of ours at Headcount have put out that sort of aligns with that. They are saying vote about it. So think about what you care about. For young people in particular, there's a lot at stake. You have a lot of skin in the game when it comes to the policies that impact our shared future. And this is your opportunity to claim your power at the ballot box, have a say, vote about something, and make sure that you are bringing people into office to work for you and in service of your best interests.
Yeah, and I would certainly concur with everything that Lauren just shared. And I feel like it is important to remind people that there's far more on the ballot than just the presidential race. I know that people can feel one way or another about different races on the ballot as to whether they're excited about them or not excited about them. And I think that reminding people about the folks who are going to be all across the ballot at their local level, at the community level, at the state level, at the national level is critically important. And also the importance of ballot initiatives. I know that that's something that so often is critically important to young people when they think about how they're going to vote, and it gives a chance for them to engage in direct democracy with the issues that are going to affect their life. And there's a lot of really important initiatives that are on ballots all across the country this year. So I think that if that's, if there's one thing that doesn't excite people, move on to the other. And the other thing to remind people is showing those examples of how close these elections can be. I mean, I know that probably everybody here is watching, how close the polls are in just about every race, every battleground state, every Senate race, congressional race. I mean, things are going to be very, very tight this year. And providing those examples where 1 vote, 5 votes, 10 votes really made the difference between, somebody getting elected and somebody not, gives a real opportunity to let people know that their voice is critically important in these elections.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. Another question from Noelani. Is there capacity to embed vote riders and vote early day portals into campus platforms such as Give Pulse or Engage Anthology?
I'm not specifically familiar with those uh, specific platforms, but we do have embeddable links that we could share with folks if they wanted to try the process of embedding. I'm happy to toss my email in the chat for folks to be able to reach out to me, and I'm happy to send you the link from there if you want to follow up. But can't speak specifically to those platforms, but happy to try our very best to make it work.
Love it.
Same answer for me. That is above my technical capacity to respond to. But a lot of different partners of ours at Vote Riders take text from our website or links from our website and put it directly in. I think we don't quite have sort of the parallel to the Vote Early Day tool that you would want to sort of embed. Oftentimes partners will link out to our website or just list the helpline number. The League of Women Voters is an example of a partner that lists ID laws on their Vote 411 site and then says, if you need free help with ID, contact the Vote Riders helpline here. But I'll also drop my email in the chat, and we can see if we can figure out a solution for what you are envisioning in terms of embedding tools.
Love that. A question from Kathy. Kathy, actually, I know your name. You're a community partner. What if you set up away from the poll to distribute water and snacks? Would you get in trouble? So I guess she's referring to the states that don't allow this. Do either of you know if there's like parameters for like how far you can be set up, or any advice on that?
I would just say, when in doubt, contact your local election official. Don't want to put words in Bryce's mouth, but I can guess that neither of us feels comfortable giving advice like that. But your local election office is a perfect source for that really good question. And yeah, there are sort of different rules by states about different perimeters for where you can put up signs and where you can offer snacks and if you can offer it at all. So I would say keep it local for that type of question, and great that you are thinking about it now.
Agree. And you can go to your local election website, and if you can't find the answer there, you can always give them a call. Now's the time to call before they're super duper busy. So if you have that question, you can also reach out to like a local League of Women Voters, and they can put you in touch or put you on the right track to find that information. Kathleen, you asked, does Uber offer this discount only on November 5th or to early voting as well? So this promotion for Uber is only for election day, unfortunately. So fortunately and unfortunately, but if you are able to go vote on election day and maybe you're not able to vote early, that's totally fine, but you can use that promo code on election day. Betsy asked, where can we find info for voting poll jobs? Betsy, that's also information that you can find on your local county election website. You can contact them about like poll site jobs, and they'll give you like a training schedule, etc., and get you set up there. So just look up your local election office. And Antonio, voters that understand that food distributors are in a gray area this year and might be shy about accepting food. Are there any ramifications for me as a voter if I accept water, whether that's in line or outside a polling place nearby? That's a great question, Antonio, and that also kind of piggybacks off of the question I received earlier. That's something that you should verify with your poll site to see what the limitations are as a voter. That's also something that you can research in advance, but I'm sure we should not give you any advice here on that. Just make sure that you do the research to find that out. There's organizations like Pizza to the Polls that may come out and give food, especially on campus, but they know exactly where they can and can't distribute. So that's some information that you should just make sure you confirm before Election Day. Awesome. So I think that covers just about all of the questions that we have. Are there any other last thoughts that you want to share? I'm seeing some other questions about cards available in image form. And Lauren, thank you for sending that link to them. So yes, please download those cards. Download the cards or place that order, because that is a really, really powerful resource. Are there any final statements that our partners want to make about the upcoming election? Any closing remarks?
I'll just say thank you to everyone who joined and for everything you're doing. I think there's a lot of focus on, the influencers and the billion-dollar ad buys, but I think something that we often all underestimate is the power that we all uniquely have to bring one or two people with us to the polls, or use our own networks to sort of spread the footprint of democracy, if you will. And I feel like National Voter Registration Day partners are the best examples of that, of people who are committed to doing this work at the local level in a long-term way. And it is so, so important this year, but also every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add that democracy is not a spectator sport, and everybody here understands that better than most. So I'm so grateful for the work that every one of you have done to make sure that people register to vote. And now I hope that you'll join the important work of actually getting people out to vote, to share their voice, and join the 7 million people who've already done it so far. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you all here.
Well said. And with that, I just want to thank you so much for being part of this amazing GOTV resource webinar. As many of you know, we are a nonprofit, and National Voter Registration Day is free and open to all. So please consider donating so that we can keep this momentum going, especially as we hit the local and state election years. It really is impactful. So I just want to say a big thank you to our panelists who are here in their busiest of busy seasons. Thank you for taking the time. Bryce, have the best vote early day ever. Lauren, please keep up the amazing, great work. And everyone, please order your cards. Another plug for it. And thank you so much. This webinar will be shared with you as well as all of the other webinars so you have access to them. Thank you so much for joining, and please feel free to reach out to us, info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org, if you have any questions. We'll see you on Election Day.
Thank you.